What did you make of Giannis walking out there?
Well, the only potential backstory that people are speculating on is that reporter that was asking the question had posted right when the game ended a story speculating about Giannis's future in Milwaukee, about could he leave in 2020. Now, do I believe that in the 20 minutes between the game ending and when he sat up there, he not only saw the story, was told about the story, but could identify the reporter? I don't. So that's the only potential backstory. Let's just assume for the moment he just was done. My reaction is, as it almost always is in these situations, I've been very consistent. I give young players a very wide berth on this stuff, and I had no negative reaction whatsoever. I don't know if Giannis didn't want to cry up there. I don't know if Giannis thought he was done. I don't know if Giannis just said, you know what, I've done my media obligations. This is enough for me. I don't know if Giannis was angry and upset. Worried he might say something bad. Maybe when he was asked about experience, there was an experienced player he thought let him down. I don't know what went through his head in that moment, but guys, we applaud Joel Embiid because after the game it is so rough on him, he's in tears. We want guys to care so much, but then we want them within 15 minutes to understand that I have to answer every single question. I have to stay up here as long. I understand that's the ideal, but I'm not going to kill Giannis for this. We have seen a lot of guys do much worse things at press conferences by staying. We've seen a lot of guys who treat the media far worse than Giannis does. There are fair criticisms of Giannis in this series about one glaring hole in his game. Him leaving the press conference, to me, I know it's a story because we're talking about it.
Didn't bother you.
But it didn't bother me 1%.
It doesn't bother me, but I do want players to be consistent. All right? I didn't think it was a very, very tough question. I thought the question, it did have relevance to the series because it's always the person who's short, who thinks height's not important, who's slow, thinks speed's not important, and the people without experience, you know something? Experience is not that important, because you don't have it. So sit up there the way you have, because this is the one negative thing we have seen with Giannis his whole career. We haven't seen anything. No negative anything. No negative. He's batting 1,000. Yeah. You got one more question. It's on the tee. He could knock it out the park. It's not a tough question. I'm not going to get into his mind and everything as far as what he was going through and all that, but it's all part of the job. All right? How you handle your emotions is the reason why you're the captain. Is the reason why there's so much visibility on the NBA. You have people yelling on this. Oh, Giannis is getting ready to take the title from LeBron. All right? If he's going to be on that, we're going to keep him to the same standard we'd have for LeBron, for KD, for Steph, for Harden. If any of those guys would have walked out of the press conference, we would have had beef with it. So just be consistent.
But I wouldn't have. I just want to be...
I'm only speaking for myself.
Okay, I just want to say, because I think I am consistent on these points. But go ahead.
Well, at some point, you have to realize I'm a professional. I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not in college. I'm not in high school. It's the NBA Finals. We didn't make it. You have done a great job. I can understand you could be frustrated, but your job is still not done.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to... The biggest criticism of Giannis that I think is a fair one, and it's one you've been adamant about throughout the season en route to him winning MVP or probable MVP, is what the glaring weakness in his game is. And what we have seen, Jenna, throughout NBA history with the greatest of the greats is once you get to this level in the playoffs, if you have a glaring weakness in your game, it will get exposed. LeBron had won 2 MVPs, but he could not post up yet. And guess what? In 2011, the Dallas Mavericks said, we will make the focal point of our defense what you can't do. Steph had won 2 MVPs, a unanimous MVP, but had a glaring weakness on the defensive end at the time. And the Cavs made the focal point of their offense that weakness. Giannis's glaring weakness was the inability to shoot the mid-range shot, and the Raptors built their defense around that. That, to me, is a very fair criticism, something Giannis has to deal with over the course of the summer, much more than what he did at the end of the press conference.
Do you look at the failure to really perfect the mid-range jumper, or him not obviously shooting it very well, or whatever his game is in the low post, and say, well, that's the reason they lost 4 straight games? Was it because of Giannis's play, the things that he still needs to work on?
Those are part of the reasons, but when you're top of the food chain, when you start picking things apart, you go to that first, because he's so good that he could have such an impact on the game. If he had an intermediate game, they'd be advancing to the finals. If he had a post game, which is not only his fault, but it's the coach's fault. All right, Bud's got to be able to build call plays. Late in the game, they could not put Giannis on the box as a 7-footer and get a bucket because they don't have any type of offense with him playing in the low post. And that right there, they have to be able to work on. They have to put Giannis on the wing because it's harder to double team a wing player than it is a point guard at the top of the key. Every time he drives, for the most part, he's at the top of the key. The defense can sag into the paint. If I put the point guard and I kick it to him on the wing and then he attacks that way, if I have a shooter in the corner, that guy can't come off. So it's pretty much a one-on-one matchup unless I spin back into the left side into the lane. So I believe there's other things that he can add to his game to make improvement, but I'm not going to overreact because he ran into Kawhi Leonard. Because if they get through this series, if they make a bucket late in game number 3, which they're going to have a lead at that point, so the series is going to end up being 4-2, 4-1, something like that. But that didn't happen. And then they advanced to the finals against the Warriors. The Warriors don't have anyone that can defend him like Kawhi defends him. And Draymond Green is a great defender, but he's not as good as Kawhi. So I'm not going to overreact because he ran into the claw. That's all part of the NBA, and especially in playoff series basketball, Kawhi got the best of him.
And the Kawhi Leonard point is critical because I believe he's the best perimeter defender we've had in the league since Scottie Pippen. And I believe if he puts his focus on one player in a series, the way he put it on Giannis after Game 3, he is going to be able to. And he didn't remove Giannis from the series entirely, but he took a guy who was going to win league MVP and made him look like a borderline all-star. And that is an enormous impact. But to put a button on this, he was asked about experience. By experience, the questioner, I believe, meant lack of guys that have gone deep into the playoffs, lack of guys that played in the finals. The other thing this Bucks team was missing, bless you, Jenna, was experience in close games. And I talked all postseason about the upside of that. 53 wins by double digits, which means you're a great team. You're blowing people out.
Sure.
They had the second fewest wins in basketball by less than 5 points. Only, even though they had the most wins, they won 70 games this year. They only won 4 games all year, by less than 5 points. They didn't have a lot of people pressuring them into late game situations during the regular season or the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. That bit them in this round.
And a lot of people missed out on that because they just think, oh, they'll be okay in those pressure moments. Playoff basketball is totally different. That was the problem with the 98 team I played on with the Vikings. We had largest margin, broke the NFL scoring record in the fourth quarter, didn't play in a lot of games, NFC championship game goes into overtime. We weren't ready for it because we were so dominant in the regular season. It's hard to duplicate what you do over 4 or 5 months in the stretch of a month or in the NBA playoffs in a stretch of 2 months.
An incredible regular season for the Bucks comes to an end. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.